the big story here is like just how quick the market changes.
So the important part is not necessarily becoming an expert at a tool. It's just becoming the sort of person that is capable of finding information where they need it. Being good at stuff is not enough. You now have to be like exceptional at stuff. People that are just like the top 1% in the field will just crush with the new tech.
The delta between your idea and doing the thing is really small. So there's no point being disagreeable and thinking clearly if you're lazy on the couch and don't do anything. You need to actually physically do things.
Hey. What's going on, Mr. Roberts?
How's it going, brother? Dude, we're upgrading this podcast. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Crystal clear. It's like you're inside of my head. You are inside of my head all the time.
Dude,
please get out.
All the time. That's it, dude. With the headphones make no difference. Dude, guys, we are upgrading the studio. We've got headphones now. We're listening to Joe Rogan Experience, and apparently you got to have headphones on, right?
Supposedly. I don't know. Yeah, if you don't want to hear you duplicated clapping back every 5 seconds.
Bro, well, here's the thing. So we've got 3 very big topics that people are going to want to hear about. We've got a Q&A coming up. We're going to answer the questions. People are going to get wonderful answers. And we've got some controversial stuff. I actually want to kick off by saying that these headphones are really cool. They have like an immersion mode where you can't even hear yourself breathe. So when you have to be careful walking in public with these headphones, I must admit. They're like the number one asset right now.
Yeah, that's why I don't use the AirPods noise canceling
Don't you
feature.
think they fall out? Don't you think they fall out?
For sure. But I've just noticed, like, in traffic, man, it's the scariest shit ever. I have no idea what the hell's going on around me. I lose all situational awareness.
Dude, it is. And you got to think of the inefficiency, dude. When you're getting some bicep curls when those headphones fall out, you are doing a little bit of work in the arms a little bit. But outside of that, dude, I like to be efficient, Nick. And those headphones just don't hit my requirements, I'm afraid.
Well, speaking of efficiency, Jack, shall we dive into the first topic?
Let's do it. Touche, Nick. What are we talking about first? I think it's... Do you want to rock and roll us with that, Nick? What are we on about today?
The first is the inversion of interest between N8N and Claude Code. So
yes.
Anybody in the automation industry for more than a couple of years will know that way back in the day, Make.com was the big boy. What happened about a year and a bit ago was the search graphs for Make.com inverted with a new tool, which had been created a few years ago, but was gaining a lot of popularity, called N8N. Then came the era of N8N dominance. Well, what's happening now is basically the exact same thing that happened with Make.com, but we're seeing it with N8N instead. So check this out.
We got a graph for this, haven't we? Oh my gosh.
This is N8N's search traffic over time. As you guys see, even earlier on in this year, N8N was still very much in the lead in basically every way, shape, and form. But Claude Code and then interest in automation in general, right around between April to July, so what's that, like May, June, started spiking. And that's because Claude Code started gaining a ton of attention and awareness. People started looking at it and being like, what is that? And they're like, automation. And when people are interested in one thing that's automation-based, obviously they're interested in other things that are automation-based, right? So both of them grew in parallel. And then you have sort of like this mixing where both N8N since July and Claude Code have been sort of like on equal footing. But now, specifically right around like November, December, when that Opus 4.5 update came out, Claude Code is reigning supreme. And so what you're seeing a tremendous amount of both creators like ourselves, but also companies and freelancers and business owners interested in Claude Code, specifically how to use Claude Code for financial purposes, which has been a whirlwind of a change. And this is more or less exactly what we saw with Make.com.
It is. And I think this graph maps almost perfectly to my own experience as creator in this space. I'm sure as well with you, we saw the rise come. And I think one interesting point is that what's interesting to me is how they kind of grew in tandem, but they kind of felt like they were separate audiences. You kind of had your Claude Code guys over here, and then you had your N8N and Make.com builders. Now I think the groups have separated and they've all kind of distilled in this kind of shaker of like apps, if you want, and they've kind of almost fallen on a winner, which seems to be Claude Code in this instance.
Absolutely. And now people are coming out with ways to use Claude Code to build N8N flows a lot more reliably than we were doing, a few months back. I know this is not a new subject by any means, but the ability for Claude Code to do this well is certainly new with N8N MCPs and stuff like that. And so I think we're just going to see people not necessarily using N8N alone. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be using Claude Code to build N8N flows, simply because N8N is currently like the most easily accessible visual breakdown. Eventually, my thoughts are there's going to be like a Claude Code native GUI type thing, which shows you how your workflows interact with each other and whatnot. Kind of similar 100%. To, how Make has that 3D grid or graph?
Yeah.
Where you can kind of see it over the top and nobody really uses it. Well, there's going to be lots of those for Claude Code. Eventually, we're going to have like some Minecraft block style thing that just absolutely crushes.
You're so right with that, Nick, because it's the visual layer that's missing. It's almost saying in Claude we trust. We know that the logic's there, but we can't see it and validate it. And that's the thing they need to crack now is the visuality of it. But what's really interesting to me is that the conversation isn't centered around is it N8N or Claude Code or any of these models in these integrated development environments. The question is, why use N8N and Make.com rather than which one of them should I pick? The analogy I really like is that environments like anti-gravity and Cursor and, using models like Claude Code, I see this as autopilot, whereas, you're in a jet plane basically and flying. N8N is you taking the wheel back and learning it. So in 50 years time, we'll be autonomous driving and we won't need to drive the car anymore. That's the reality of it. There's still value in knowing how the car drives and understanding it. But it's like, I've just seen with a lot of the creators, it's like, it's almost explain to me why I need it now. Whereas 6 months ago, as you can see from the graph, it was pretty much like, you got to build it within N8N now. Actually, maybe a really good question, Nick, is when was the last time you built a flow in Make.com or N8N, like personally dragged freaking modules and connected them and stuff like that?
Well, I still have a bunch of Make.com and one N8N environment for my clients. And so I will have maybe a client request come in once every week or two, where I'll make some small change to their Maker N8N flow. And because it's like kind of already pre-built for the most part, it's fairly straightforward, only takes me a few minutes. But I can't help but think at every step along the way, if I just did this in an agentic workflow editor, how much easier, faster, and better would this be? Like, I could have just one-shotted their request. It's almost like I could have built a pipe between our Slack message box and then my IDE. And if they just sent it to my IDE, do you know what I mean? I could just do whatever the heck they want. I felt really similarly back when I was running 1 Second Copy, which, if you guys don't know, was the content agency I scaled to $90K a month. And when I started 1 Second Copy, my very first steps towards that business was I got access to GPT-3 way ahead of time before anybody else did. And so I hooked up Fiverr requests to a GPT-3 pipeline where people would say, I want X, and then I would approve it. And then if so, it would actually just go into GPT-3 and write an article based off what they wanted with some prompt hacks and stuff like that. So I find that really, really similar. But yeah, I'm still building things on and off. I can absolutely see how if I was starting a totally new business and I knew a fair amount about computer programming and some of the concepts like JSON and APIs and stuff like that, I wouldn't really need to. It's just the deployment protocol that I think I would need to figure out. But once you solve that, it's gravy.
The big gap right now is the visual interface. And it's the confidence that it's working, which is great to have in these visual interfaces. But I had to have a big rethink recently of if I had a brand new beginner, how would I actually teach this stuff? Because it's definitely different than it was even 3 months ago. So I've just completely updated my entire worldview on where to start with this stuff based on how this is going.
I still recommend people start with a visual tool like Maker and N8N, simply because if you don't understand simple things like HTTP requests and whatnot, I don't know, I just feel like the learning curve is way higher when you're just reading it all through text. Being able to lay it out visually with nodes and stuff like that was super helpful for me. And it's the reason why I got to use Claude Code and, anti-gravity and these other agents, I think much better than the average person. So I'm usually like, hey guys, let's be real. Make.com takes 2 weeks to get the ins and outs of. Just spend the 2 weeks. Once you figure it out, everything else will be way easier. But I can definitely see, potential future scenario where that's not the case.
Yeah, the kind of pathway I landed on is I used to say start with Make, learn the basics, then move to N8N, and then bring into the coding environments. But I thought long and hard about it, and I've decided to eliminate Make from the curriculum. I love Make still. I love Make. But I just thought to myself, as a new beginner, I have 3 technologies I'm learning. And you're learning one just to graduate to another, just to graduate to a third. And I think I biased towards keeping it simple. And I landed on, I think it's easy to get a quick win in anti-gravity and Google AI Studio and Bolt and all those places because you can build it and you get it. That becomes your first initial win. And then I'm like, but it's like once you master these platforms like Curse from Claude Code, it's like, okay, cool. My advice is I still want you to go and learn N8M. But as I'm finding, I know you find this, but as I'm building things, I'm finding my requirements go back is going down a lot as the models actually get better over time. Like it's awesome for an MCP, like bringing in Zapier. I call it the universal remote. Like if you can't find MCP, just freaking throw it into N8M or Zapier or something, and you get the full suite of access. Or if it's something extremely granular, you need to go in there with some tweezers and start pulling some things apart. The visual interface is cool. But what kind of I think is the big story here is like just how quick the market changes. Like that graph really does show. Like I think 6 months ago, and we both love N8N, we love Make, we love the teams within, they're awesome. But it's just wild to see how quickly the market moves around. Like Make was the king, then it was N8N, and then the movement now to these environments. It's been really interesting to see.
Yeah, we do this thing once a month in Maker School called State of the Upwork. One of my community members, Aaron Melton, just kicked it off like 5 or 6 months ago, and it's just been a mainstay ever since. But basically, at the end of the month, he goes through all of the different popular keywords for job searches on Upwork, like Make.com, N8N, Zapier, GHL, Go High Level, and all these other platforms. And then he like kind of graphs it, and then he feeds it into AI for like a really, really high level and in-depth summary. And what we find is like Zapier was the king, believe it or not, even like 6 months ago. And so something like 34 or 35% of all automation jobs for Zapier, on Upwork anyway, which is a freelance platform that I think is pretty representative of just the general market at this point. And there was like an inversion, like 4 or 5 months ago, where it was like Zapier was at 34%, and then N8N was at like 32% or something. I'm butchering the numbers, but it's approximately similar. And then it was just like, it just flipped. And then N8N was like 40%, like Zapier was like 28% or something. So that was just a few months ago. And then this happened just like a month and a half ago. I mean, dude, this pace of change and like these new tools that are going to come out and become dominant, like this is just going to increase in frequency, 100%. Right? So the important part is not necessarily becoming an expert at a tool. It's just becoming the sort of person that is capable of finding information where they need it. You just need a very small foundational base of knowledge now. And then you need the ability to like ask AI tools, how the hell does this work? It's like Google, right? I mean, back in the day, if you wanted to learn something, you had to really be an expert who studied it for 20 years. And then if you wanted to like add on your knowledge, you had to go to the encyclopedia down at the local library and thumb through pages for 2 hours. Well, with Google, it's like, it doesn't actually matter whether or not you know the thing. It's just, can you find the thing when you need it? This is like that, just like 100 times as strong.
It's really well said. And it's so interesting the data you've got in our community, AI Automations by Jack. I was looking through all of the postings for jobs, and one of them, I noticed a change in language, and it didn't say looking to build an N8N workflow. So I'm looking for a vibe coder to build this thing.
Yeah.
Which I see as a proxy for Claude Code, building these different things. But it's like, I love it because it's just decreasing the delta between an idea and execution. And I think it's freaking sick. But here's a great news for everybody listening. There is no next thing. Like we always say, Nick and I, that Make.com and N8N are these extraction layers. When you're in Claude Code, there's nothing else closer to the code. You are literally in the code. The only thing close to the code is, you're in the matrix. Basically, that's it. Like now you're actually touching and feeling and configuring it. There's nothing else. I think once you learn how to master these principles and build things, I don't think there's any other tools. Realistically, it's just integrations, locking your integrations down. And then I think it's techniques and the art of what's possible. The skill to manage databases is key. You have to understand that. You have to, I think, master your Superbases, your Firebases. You need some kind of good data management. But what I think is also really interesting here, Nick, is that as these things get easier to build, being great, like having a good taste for design becomes extremely valuable. Like the value of that skill has gone through the roof now because having taste, being able to write good copy has become more valuable. So I think there's something to be said about actually some of the differentiators once you've mastered it are these kind of adjacent skills that just like accelerate it.
Yeah, if I had to summarize it, I would say being good at stuff is not enough. You now have to be like exceptional at stuff, but there is disproportionate power in the hands of people that are exceptional at stuff. If you look at the people that submit the most, like, do the most PRs and stuff like that now on GitHub with Claude Code and vibe coding tools, it's no longer like, it's not like junior engineers, like, a few years ago, which were all submitting the vast majority of all the push requests. Now it's like senior engineers. It's like VPs, it's like CEOs. It's because these people are obviously much closer to like, supposedly like the product or the vision or whatnot. Likewise, if you look at the people that are absolutely crushing it in cold email, it's not like the noobs because AI can now write copy better than the noobs. It's like the people that are super, super exceptional. And I think you just find this with any new technology. It's always the long tail. People that are just like the top 1% in the field will just crush with the new tech, displace like 99% of everybody else. And then they're just left to kind of fend for themselves.
Yeah, it's actually what do you think's going on? Like, what do you think happened in Make.com HQ when like the audience shifted? And like, do you think anytime, I wonder if they're feeling the effect of like overall net content volume being less. Because
Yeah,
I think
probably.
YouTube is an amazing growth channel for these businesses. Like it genuinely is so huge. I think the creator economy on YouTube is the frontier for all of these businesses in many respects.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like we're basically a built-in marketing channel.
Free marketing channel in
True.
many respects.
True. What's up next, Jack? What else we got?
So we have, I'm going to pull it up in my screen as well. So we can take a good look at this. Let's see if I can share my screen. We go. Can I get presentation mode? This is one, right? Presentation mode? Oh, is it screen mode? Let's see.
Now you get on a share and then you click screen.
Okay, it's entire screen.
At least that's what I do. I don't know.
Okay, so Infinity Windows one side.
Oof.
I thought this was a really interesting article from Rundown AI about OpenAI basically bringing in ads to ChatGPT, which I thought was really interesting. So zoom into some of the details here. So ads will appear below responses as sponsored recommendations, targeted based on conversations, but excluded from health, politics, and underage users. So you're not going to get donate to the Trump campaign if you're looking at like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So this is out of scope right now. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to flip back and forth, but let's just first of all start with like general thoughts, observations on ads coming to ChatGPT, and then we can go to some of the specifics.
Yeah, I mean, ads coming to ChatGPT, just a matter of time. Think about Netflix, right? You had that premium tier of like $15 a month or whatever, and it was just like, oh, no ads ever. And people were like, cable TV or Netflix. Obviously, I'm going to buy Netflix. Then Netflix gets a bunch of middle management people in there. They're like, we have to monetize. And then they're like, okay, let's push the premium tier up to $25. Let's offer a new base tier of $8 or whatever the hell. And let's just like do light ads. That's just how it is, man. I mean, like
It's crazy.
anytime a market gets sophisticated, they're going to throw some freaking ads on it. And I mean, like that's for good or for bad, right?
Yeah. Well, I think ads in ChatGPT is not a bad thing, to be honest with you. Like there are times where I want recommendations. Like I was yapping to it about, where is it now? This controller. So Nick and I run into probably the biggest technical challenge of our lives, actually, trying to connect a controller to a sort of Windows laptop. And basically, I was talking to ChatGPT about it, and I said, just find me a controller that would work. Like I actually wanted to recommend a product to me, and I say this to say there are times and occasions where you've given ChatGPT enough context where actually it's like, well, I can synthesize the results based on the context. So I think, but you could say that that's more pull advertising, where you're requesting something, and ChatGPT gives you a link. I think that's fine. I don't mind them getting a commission on something like that. Although I will be honest that if we think about PayPal Honey, did you see the Megalag videos on PayPal Honey?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's crazy scandal. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Honey is like a browser extension and it's supposed to get you coupons, but there was a huge scandal. The point is that like when you create revenue opportunities, people follow their incentives, and usually the incentives is to maximize revenue. And that can sometimes clash with what is best for the consumer. In other words, you. So the problem with it is, I think even if it's created with the best of intentions, I think the system becomes a dragon purely based on the fact they're going to want to monetize. And they have a lot of commitments they need to make. So I just wonder if it can ever truly be giving you the best recommendations. Like, who's to say, like, let's be honest, right? If you had a million users on the platform, and so we can give them the best thing, I won't give you a 1% commission. Or do you want to shill this thing for 10%? It's like they're going to say no, but at some point they're going to meander logic. Like, I'm not saying that any companies are evil. I'm just saying that, like, when they can get 10%, I think at some point it's like, how do you know that you're getting the best thing? Is my point here.
Depends, right? If the company's in a good spot, it's growing, it's raising a bunch of money and whatnot. Like, of course not. But we now have people saying, OpenAI is going to lose $16 billion in revenue this year. So they're going to need to find a way to collect. So,
Like collect.
the company's kind of in that point. It's like, oh, we need to raise our tax revenues like most governments around the world. Oh, and it'll only be temporary, only until we solve this problem. 100 years
Just
later.
a brief 1% tax. That's all we want for now.
On tea. Just tea. Yeah.
Until we come back to something later. So that's one thing. I think in principle, I think it's fine. I think it's cool. They've got to make money, and they had a great service, so I think it's decent.
You know what? I saw this X post the other day where some guy had on every app on his iPhone said, ask app to not track. It's a feature that comes up where basically it's like, hey, an advertiser wants to track you. Do you want to allow it? And you always click do not. Because you're like, well, I don't want to give them any more data. Anyway, this guy said, what are you guys doing? You should absolutely allow advertisers to track you all over the internet. I did this, and now my ads are fantastic. They're all hyper relevant. They're exactly what I want. The problem is not bad advertising. The problem is irrelevant advertising. If it's easier for you to make a purchase decision because they have all the information that you need and they put in front of you something that is just super fantastic and it like solves all your problems, why wouldn't that be a good thing? And so it got me thinking. And I think I might do an experiment where I go through my phone settings and I turn off all the Ask App not to track settings and just see how that goes.
Oh my gosh.
Because like,
that is
dude, I remember
wild.
Microsoft way back in the day, right? Was like, hey, do you want to allow advertisers to track you or whatever? And every time I'd get a new PC, I'd always like turn that feature off. And then one time I just like didn't. And I did notice that the quality of the ads that were coming in were like way more relevant. They were all like technology products. It was like cool hardware gadgets. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's actually pretty cool. But now because I'm so quote unquote privacy minded, I'm like, nah. And then I get freaking ads for, I don't know, women's shoes. I'm like,
yeah,
right.
That's a great tracked ad. Yeah, it's true. I think it's like, it's when it's the language. Do you want this app to track you? It's almost menacing. It's almost like it's going to be in the closet in the bedroom or something. Like, what the hell is this app doing around here? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what do you mean by it's like, can I track you around? Like, throw a breadcrumb on you and follow you ruthlessly across the internet. It's actually crazy. So
yeah, but it's like, do you want better ads? Like, what are you going to say? Obviously you're going to say yes,
well,
right?
Nobody wants ads, I think.
That's true.
Nobody would. It's like, but what is a better ad?
Which is one that's more relevant. To be honest, it's all relevant. It could be a shitty Times New Roman text on a page, white background, no good design, no nothing. But if it's hyper relevant to me, I'm going to want it.
I think ads got a bad name because it was forcing your attention. It was essentially stealing your brain power without you wanting it. Like they did the analysis we talked about on gambling, for example, how many ads you see. Like it's actually crazy the number of ads you see, but your brain starts to phase them out because it just knows. And so there's this constant yin and yang where they try to make ads feel more native. And you'll notice this on Google. You'll notice it on Instagram or TikTok because they just look down for the sponsored button. And I notice that the sponsored button gets greater opacity every week. So
pretty soon it's going to be invisible.
And you just get a sixth sense. I'm like, this is an ad. And then you look down, you're like, yeah, it was absolutely an ad. So if we look at a little bit more detail on this thing, because I think this is really fascinating. And by the way, I think it's a direction of travel that they're all going to go into at some point. So let's have a look. So it coincides with the company's $8 a month ChatGPT Go tier. Oh, that's interesting.
Go.
So
there we go. Classic.
ChatGPT Go. I wonder what that's going to be. Are they going to get ads? I wonder if that's going to be ad-free. Interesting. Premium tiers plus Pro Business Enterprise remain ad-free. Okay, that's great to know. With OpenAI, OAI, that's a new acronym, pledging to never sell user data or let ads influence ChatGPT's answers. I do believe that they'll do that. I think that if the integrity of the platform's ever questioned, that is tantamount to the company's collapse, basically. The second we don't believe OpenAI is honest or at least fair or like it's abusing our data, I think everyone leaves. So that would be the same as them just getting destroyed, essentially. Someone said in 2024 that ads in ChatGPT would be a last resort, but most recently he wasn't totally against it. So interesting. Looks like the tides have turned, and I think he reserves the right to change his opinion, as we all do, based on new information and opportunities. I think for me, as long as I'm not getting bothered with ads, which it sounds like I won't, I think it's just, Nick, the freeloaders of this world, Nick, the guys that aren't paying for ChatGPT, the people that aren't helping the cause. We're going to throw them some ads. We're gonna say, you know what, you want to use our service for free? Well, we're gonna give you some ads.
We should actually, we should round them up, and we should make sure to check everybody's attic. And if we find a freeloading non-ad viewer in there, we should try putting them into camps with big screens that show them ads. It's much more efficient.
100%. I mean, how many friends have you lost who aren't paying for ChatGPT, Nick? How many when you found out they weren't on the Plus plan? How many relationships have broken down because
Plus
of that?
plan supremacy. I was in my Tinder profile.
100%. Well, dude, ironically, my girlfriend's not on ChatGPT Plus.
Oh,
So, dude, how long is this going to last? That's my question.
I got mine a Gemini subscription.
Did you?
Got to make sure that I have more up-to-date knowledge than she does. You catch my drift.
Give her like a llama model or something. Give her like a kind of some really like low powered model or something. I did actually. I swear I paid for the subscription, but then just magically it went away. But like, she keeps asking me like, "Well, is this feature available in the free plan?" I'm like, "You're on the free plan." Every time I hear, I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean the free plan?" This is crazy. I think I'm paying about 6 models right now. Actually, dude, are you on the Gemini Super Pro and the Claude Super Pro Max? Are you on like the
no,
super
just the Claude,
things?
just the Claude Super Pro Max. She's got the Gemini. She's a student, so she like gets it for basically nothing. And then ChatGPT I'm still paying for. But I'll be honest, like jumping around between models, what the hell's the point of that? You know, like they're all trained on the same freaking internet anyway. There are very small differences between them now. What I've come to realize is like Anthropic has optimized relentlessly for code, right? So their models are fantastic at coding, like incredible at coding. Yeah. And like, you know, they're good at other stuff too, but it's because of the emphasis on coding that they're good at like problem solving and logic. But if you look at some of those Erdos problem solutions that ChatGPT came up with, right? Like, you know, the frontier math stuff, you know, ChatGPT's, you know, it's optimized slightly differently. That said, I don't really care because the problems that I'm working on a day-to-day basis are not frontier math problems. And it's interesting to me because I was always like, how am I going to feel when ChatGPT gets smarter than me or when Claude gets smarter than me? Am I going to feel invalidated? And I'll be honest, I think like in many ways, these things are way smarter than I am already. And I don't really feel all that different. So maybe this is one of those things where the singularity we've been prophesied about is just going to like zoom by and nothing in our lives is going to change. We're going to be like, whatever. Things are smarter than us. They always have been.
I think that's astute. I think it's the boiling of the frog with these things. I don't think it's like a eureka moment, crazy scientist running out of OpenAI HQ with a sheet of paper, like who's cracked the world or something. I think it's a slow march of many, many extremely micro improvements in an infinite number of small verticals, like images. And they're all on a one-way track for a collision course. I think once they crack this generalized intelligence, the weird thing is I don't think it needs to be general intelligence. I think it's just if you stack enough specialized intelligences alongside each other and you program it properly, what's the difference? So
yeah, I guess so.
I mean, like today was a really good example. I created a few invoices. I just did it for me instantaneously within my coding environment. It was wonderful and brilliant. And it's like, dude, it is getting so freaking good, man. It is getting so freaking good. It is the best time to learn AI automations. It genuinely is an amazing time to be in the game, man, 100%. And it's exciting. I like the pace of change. People say they feel a little, you know, in the world, a little overwhelmed. But I think that, to be honest with you, I think that it's getting simpler to learn in some respects. It's simultaneously getting more powerful, but also more accessible at the same time. So it's a little paradoxical.
Agree 100%, which I think takes us nicely into our last subject for the day, which is the future of service businesses and agencies. You just talked about whether or not about being able to construct an invoice in, I imagine, just a few seconds, right? Well,
100%.
The main question for us is really, will agencies or service agencies still be a thing in 2030? And that's what I wanted to chat with you about right now. You see this?
Oh my gosh, dude, yeah.
I know, I prepared. God damn, I'm good. So will agencies still be a thing in the year 2030? That's 4 years away. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts first, and then I'll go after.
The short answer's got to be yes. Yeah, I do genuinely. Well, first of all, let's take a step back because I think it's difficult to conceptualize 4 or 5 years when we're talking about it. I've often found even planning 12 months, you're wildly wrong. Like you could probably do 3 months, right? But a year is difficult. 4 years is way more difficult. But I think no matter how powerful the technology gets, I think that fundamentally there's always going to be a discrepancy between known knowledge and executed knowledge. And people, for the longest time ever, have been paying people for things that they could do, but have decided not to learn because they don't want to invest the time to get the skills. And no matter what the skills of the day are, maybe a few thousand years ago it was how to, ground a big square blab of concrete into a wheel, and now it's AI automations, I think they're still going to pay. So I think as a fundamental economic principle, I think that agencies are going to work. But I think what it will look like will be unrecognizable compared to what it looks like today. What do you think, Nick?
Fair answer. Could I ask a follow-up to that? Will
Absolutely
the future
not.
agencies, these ones that you're talking about in 2030, will they be composed of humans or will they be composed of agents?
Well, we live today in 2026, what I call the one-page economy, which is, I was on a call recently and I said, guys, when was the last time that you read a document that was longer than one page? And everyone started smiling. And the answer was a long time ago. And if it's longer than a page, we get AI to summarize it, right? And if we're creating something longer than the page, usually you get AI to create it. So we are already at the point now where people will not read something if it's longer than the page. So if you want anything to be read by a human, you create it on one page. I said to say that we're using AI for everything. Emails, it auto draft responds to my emails right now. It does so many different things. So I think we're already using AI. And by that extent, I think that the agencies are going to have a human with AI, because you've got to think like the tools that the businesses are going to have access to are going to be the same. So I guess the big caveat to this, I think, is unless we reach some kind of AGI, then the paradigm shift is you don't need a human because it's already done and it's over. And it's game over. That's the game over scenario, I guess. Yeah, bro. I guess that's the big nuclear red button.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Because the way that I see it is the purpose of an agency is to take a request and then project manage that thing by delegating work to various other entities and parties until they are done. They then synthesize all those various components, do the thing that you wanted at a higher level, and then present it back to you, right?
Mm.
And I think right now, the best agency project managers are probably better than models. But what happens when the models become better than people? I think we're right around the corner there. And the second that happens, I just can't see at least the human form of an agency being a thing. I could certainly see us having agents where we make simple one-line requests and then it goes through that whole project management stack like I was talking about, delegates things to sub-agents, does the task, returns them to you. But is that an agency? I guess it's a more philosophical question at this point. I definitely don't think service agencies in the form that they are today will be a thing. And I mean, I'm sure there will be one or more service agencies. I'm not a freaking moron. But, I don't think they will be a powerful economic unit for sure. Like right now, services make up a substantial amount of the economy. Check out like Deloitte consulting agency, consultancy, whatever. It's an agency, right? Let's be honest. Think about like KPMG, accounting agency, really high level firm, right? After a certain point, by the way, the term agency converts into the term firm. Same shit. Different day.
Dude, I think that's really powerful, actually. I think because the way I think of an agency is an agency at its simplest level exists to deliver an outcome for the business that they either don't have the time or ability to do, fundamentally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Exactly.
just that will continue to be as it is. I think that's it. Unless AI just automates all work away. But to be honest with you, I think it's worth, when considering the future, operating under the assumption that that's not going to happen, even though it will happen, because you can't plan for that. The way I would kind of liken it to is like, it's like the whole student loan payment off in America, where a lot of people delayed paying off their money because Biden's going to clear all the debt. You're way better off just assuming that's not happening and take command over your future and your present and sort the mess out that you have, than kind of planning on it happening. Like, I think your net's going to be in a far better position. And then if it so happens to be the case that AGI has arrived, then we have a whole beautiful new set of interesting questions to ask ourselves. But you yourself are going to be in a far substantially better position, especially if you're in and around with technology. Because what you have to realize is before we hit AGI, which I don't personally believe is a eureka moment someone runs out of a building,
Yeah.
you're going to have a period of the hyper users that know how to use the technology. And that small subsect of people are the ones that are going to make incredible amount of progress and wealth and expand before it becomes publicly available. I think there'll be a golden window of super users that use this technology before it becomes massively publicly available. So I think any way that you look at it, you're way better off learning it and following that strategy.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, like, this isn't to say that you shouldn't start an agency today. You know, I understand that like a big chunk of my own business model is built off of talking to people about the massive opportunity of like running a service business over the course of the next, you know, maybe 1.5 to 2 years. But, you know, this is like further on than 1.5 to 2 years. 2030, who the hell knows, right? I mean, look at the progress between 2024 to 2025 and then 2025 to early 2026. It's bonkers, right? So it does really beg the question of whether agencies as we know it are going to be a thing in 5 years' time. I'll stop the screen share, but it takes me to a pretty interesting question that I've gotten quite a bit recently, which is, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Which I find hilarious because I'm like, you know, they're like, Nick, what are your 5-year plans? And I get that a lot in my community. It's like one of the most common questions. And I'm like, dude, I don't know where the hell I'm going to be in like 6 months. Like, it's difficult for me to plan in more than like maybe 3 to 6 month intervals at this point, which is a concept that you actually talked with me about, I think like 2 months ago or so, something like that. But I've really taken it to heart. Like, it is irresponsible, I think, to assume the world would look the same today as it would in 5 years. But everybody's getting careers and sort of treating it as if it's not. So anyway, my thoughts on the agency business model, to make it super clear to anybody that watches, is I think we're going to see a period of hyper opportunity for maybe a year. Things are going to start trickling off because agents are going to take more traditional agency functions over the course of the next from that period of 1 year from now to maybe like 2 to 3 years. Then I think after that, there's most likely going to be a new sort of business model enabled by technology that'll be much more profitable to get into. It would not really make sense for a beginner to try, you know, generating invoices themselves and selling accounting service. You know what I mean? That's my
100%.
That's my thesis, and I guess time will prove me right around.
I think that's really well said, Nick. I think the key skill is the ability to learn new skills, and you can point to a million examples within the last 2 years of why that's so true. Make.com, N8N, Claude Code, these coding environments, and I have no doubt that in 6 months' time there'll be something new to learn. But you've got to stay nimble and focusing on the right things, which is, I think, one of the key differentiators with this thing is that these are tools, but they don't do the job for you yet. Like, you're the one that has to pick up a drill and into the wall, right? You've got to physically do the things that need to be done. So I think discernment and weirdly enough, I think it's actually all the adjacent skills that will start to be helpful once you crack and reach certain levels. So I think you've got to be super curious to crush it.
Yeah, and high agency. Speaking of the term agent, you got to be high agency, man. Like, you can do whatever you want.
You have to be high agency.
It's literally just like
have to be high
choose
agency.
to do it and then do it.
Oh, dude, should we riff on this high agency thing before we do some Q&A for a minute or two? Because that article is amazing.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's riff on it, and then let's do Q&A. And then I see we have some chat messages, and we also have some ones from the channel. So we'll have to find a way to split that up. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So actually, Nick shared this really beautiful article on high agency, and we'll put it below the podcast. But effectively, it describes a kind of worldview, if you like. And I think they break it down into, I'm trying to find out what the actual breakdown is. Okay. So somebody who's a high agency, ask yourself this question. If you were locked in a prison in a third world country, you had one call, it was guaranteed that person would pick up. Who's the person that you believe is most likely to get you out of the jail cell? Whoever, just think about that for a second. Whoever that person is the person who who you believe has the highest agency to do that. Because to break you out, they need to be what they call the three spokes of a high agency person. Is somebody that's disagreeable. In other words, once they're told, we can't get Nick out, you're like, well, yes, you can, and we need to find a way. They can think clearly and formulate strategies. And they have and this is the big one, Nick, I think as well, is bias to action. That's the biggest one, I think, which is the delta between your idea and doing the thing is really small. So there's no point being disagreeable and thinking clearly if you're lazy on the couch and don't do anything. You need to actually physically do things. So the article is amazing and it breaks it down. It's definitely probably one of the best articles I've read like in the last 12 months. It's super freaking cool and definitely changed the way that I see a couple of things, man. So anything you'd add on to that, Nick, before we do any Q&A?
Yeah, likewise. I mean, if you think about my last 10 years in entrepreneurship, it was literally just building a bias to action. You know, I went to school and then I went to university. And in both of those environments, you have to put your hand up before you go take a piss. Hey, teacher, can I use the washroom? Which is the exact wrong set of skills to be teaching somebody if you wanted to actually facilitate a mindset of high agency. So really the last 10 years of my life has just been like progressively unlearning that and biasing to action. And now I have sort of like an internal rule where it's like, hey, if you think that this thing is worthwhile, you must do it. You must do it because you don't know for sure. You must actually perform a mini scientific experiment and do the thing and see how it goes. And if not, you have no right to talk about what ifs. So
I love that.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're just a scientist at work.
I also had, just to add one onto that, I'm trying to do the same with any generous impulse. So anytime I think a nice thing or a compliment, or I think, wouldn't it be cool just to pay for that, I just do it. Like I try to, like, the second I get the thought, execute on it straight away. So it's not just building your stuff. It's like anything that's like nice or generous that you just try to just do the second you think about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. I like that idea. Sort of brightens up the world a bit.
It does, man.
Okay,
It does.
I'm going to share my screen. And why don't we do the first, I mean, we still have like 16 minutes left, 17 minutes left. So why don't we do the first half through our YouTube comments and then the second half for the people that are here live? Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds good, dude. Yeah.
Cool. Let's flip it up. Hopefully you guys could see all this.
Gives anybody listening live to drop any questions you've got in the side.
Yes, exactly. All right. What do we got here? Part-time 7 says, nice MLG reference. That's for Jack. I played Halo 2 like it was my job back then. I used to play with some of the MLG pros occasionally, and their teamwork was always next level. I'd agree.
I would hire someone who was an MLG pro, 100%. I know what it takes communication-wise. They're amazing.
High agency, man. That's teamwork.
It is.
Mikhail says he's ready for the lock-in. Thank you. Black for Life 09 says, not Michael Jackson over here. The DOAC intro going into the bros talking shop is fire. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Well done, Tyler.
Cool podcast. Yeah, Tyler's crushing it. Okay. Relearning ads. Thanks you, the AI government contractor. Relearning ads, says Jarrett. Remember last December, I spent 30 hours trying to connect Meta's Graph API to a Google Sheet. Now from a technical level, I'm proficient enough to be confident on taking on any task. This is cross-applicable to any skill. If you're willing to dedicate a short spurt of unreasonable volume on attention, you become a subject-level expert across skill categories. Most important part is choosing the direction. Unfortunately, time and attention grows more scarce each day. Wow, I think he's touching on something important there. That point about time and attention growing more scarce each day. I mean, like, to me, to be honest, I think that time grows more abundant each day, and it's the attention that grows more scarce each day. Like, if you think about it, these technologies free up our time, right? But we also have the competing, like, we have like productive technologies that improve our ability to do things. And then we have technologies that are parasitic that basically improve their ability to hijack our attention. Think Reels and whatever. Like X.com, for instance, was a problem of mine. Could not stop scrolling through it when there were all those political things about Nicolas Maduro and whatnot. And I was just like hooked on it. I was like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, wait, like this is news 2.0. It was like really, really, really good at hijacking my attention. But I also have Claude Opus 4.5, which can now do whatever the hell I want with like a click of a button, right? So yeah, I think personally there's an interplay of those two factors. And I think like that's going to be the primary issue of the next few years. It's like, how are we going to reclaim our attention, actually utilize these tools in a way that improves net productivity, not just, keeps us at the same level. What do you think?
I think that's so good. And this is something that you touched on that changed my point of view on it about shorts. You're like, I don't really watch shorts. And I was like, Nick's right. Because it is, we were talking about Andrew Yang saying this, that short form content is an economically inferior good. Like it just steals your time for things that you could otherwise be doing. And I challenge anyone to, and it's difficult to do because people feel that you're relaxing when you do it. But honestly, if you actually track how much time you spend and ask yourself if you can remember any short form piece of content that you've seen in the last 6 months, you probably struggle to name a lot of them. So I think your life gets a lot better when you ditch that stuff. But you're right, there's no shortage of things that are trying to steal your attention. Beautifully made point.
I can remember trends, like the AI cats ringing your doorbell with a shotgun trend. but I don't remember like specific videos. Wasn't that interesting?
It's crazy. No, it's all a blur. It's also hacking your synapses. Yeah.
Yeah, not good. I see Jarrett's asked a bunch of questions here. I think I'm just going to skip through, and maybe we have like some rule where it's like 1 point or 1 question per. That probably just makes more sense. And then next time around, we can, tackle this question.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it, Jarrett. Mr. Zemansky is giving us some laughs. Thank you. Where are my ladder D2 players at from back in the day? Not here.
Congregate that. Not on this channel, I'm afraid.
My girlfriend asked, sorry, bro, that was so uncool. I meant my chick. What was that about? Just call her.
Some relationship advice. This is cool.
Thank you very much, Odrin. Yeah, I was actually kind of, I don't know, I didn't really want to like bring up my girlfriend on any sort of podcast or material for quite a while. But then somebody just asked me like, hey, what'd you do today? And like, I literally just spent the entire day with my girlfriend. And I was just like, yeah, this chick takes up like, and I don't mean take up in a bad way, but I mean like, I spent a big chunk of my life with this woman. And I'm like, somebody asked me what I do today. Should probably mention her.
She exists.
Yeah.
She exists, right?
Dudes Bros, long-time listener here. Quick question for both of you. I've been learning N8N for the past 3 weeks. Make that a month in 3 weeks.
That's it.
In a
4 weeks,
tutorial, Nick was debugging an issue live. I ran the same problem through ChatGPT, got a perfect fix in 1 shot. Here's what I'm wrestling with. If I can handle 80 to 90% of coding and debugging, how deep should I go into traditional coding and systems fundamentals? Is it worth trying to wrap my head around coding, or should I focus on acquisition, mapping, and using AI to execute? Would love your take on this. Cheers from Bulgaria. We have a Bulgarian. Here's Zdravey. Priyato. Hello. You want to tackle this one first?
Well, yeah, I think we need to validate that was real Bulgarian, actually. It's like, Nick, I didn't know you spoke full Bulgarian. That's so cool, bro. Yeah, actually, I think we kind of covered the essence of that question on the podcast. You want to understand the wiring behind it is really worthwhile doing. By the way, little side note, I'm not a big fan of Claude doing coding in N8N because I actually tried it and I found that the N8N inbuilt chat was easier and better. I didn't find any substantive increase by connecting Claude Code. So I thought it was a bit, in my view, I didn't think it was worth the time doing. I do think Claude Code is very powerful, but if you're using to build N8N workflows, I just use inbuilt N8N workflow builder. But to answer your question, I think, yeah, it's worth learning the wiring, but 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I also want you to know, Tom Tomoff, like, you got a perfect fix in 1 shot this time, but I think we need to understand the statistical nature of these. Just because you get a perfect fix 1 time just means that your specific point on whatever, like graph or whatever, just happened to be perfect, right? Let's say this is the fix right here. And this green line here is ChatGPT. Well, you just happen to get this fix, but in another 100 iterations or maybe 20 iterations or something like that, it might get it wrong like half the time too. And so there's the statistical nature, there's the variance of the model. And so just because it got it perfect right now does not mean it will always get it perfect. I would keep that in mind. Like, I bet you if you ran the same problem through ChatGPT 10 times, there'd be multiple that were probably incorrect or maybe slightly different in the route that they took to solve the problem. So yeah, I mean, like, these models are going to grow more intelligent with time. Just be careful, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, Project 2030. Thank you very much. Are y'all going to run the Master Chief Collection or the latest? Yeah, we're going to play Halo after this. We're going to play Halo campaign. So anybody wants to
This is the Millionaire podcast after hours, where all the true controversial opinions come out as soon as this podcast is over.
we're playing Master Chief Collection, baby. It's going to be sick. Mark, who's a friend of mine, says Jack is hilarious. Jack, you're stealing my friends from me, buddy. They like you more than they like me. Mark. Nice podcast. Okay. All right, let's call it here and then maybe do some chat cues. That good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's do it. Okay. I don't know how we can get these up on the page. I don't know if there's a way to, but shall we just start at the top?
I think actually the way Riverside works, as they were commenting, it'll pop up, but we can just go top to bottom. So thank you, Paul Sander, the goats. We do use Riverside. We followed you. Please use some kind of coupon code somewhere.
We got some spam in there. Fantastic. We got our first spammer.
We got first spam doing it. Oh my goodness, dude. We need to get their moderations to crack down on that immediately. So, hey, Nick, I've been trying real hard to connect with you and offer free AI services for an exchange for a video testimonial. This is a 9-to-5 escaper.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, my man. I appreciate you trying real hard.
Is that your point?
Yeah, I mean, to get good, kid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Listen, think that it is valiant that you are taking action towards a goal, which is, let's say, working with me for a video testimonial or whatever. But I would encourage you to change your approach. When you want to work with people, presumably that are further ahead in their career than you are, you must assume that they're very busy. You must also assume that they have what's called optionality, which is the ability to choose between a bunch of people that are offering to do things for them. And so what you need to do if you want to be chosen is you have to demonstrate a very high degree of value up front to solve a problem that you know that I am suffering from, which proves to me that you understand who I am and the problems that I suffer from. And you have to be persistent about that. But I don't think you're doing that right now. I think you're just kind of knock, knock. Hey, I want a video testimonial. Can I do some free work for you? If you say that to me, then what I have to do is I have to come up with the work for you to do. I have to think about the problems that I struggle with and that you could solve. And then I have to manage you. So just remove all that from my plate, do all that work ahead of time, and then just give me the solutions. And if it's a good solution, I'll absolutely give you a video testimonial because I do that sort of shit to people all the time.
Very well said. Very well said. We're going to the question here, how to become articulate like you guys.
Articulate. How do I do the articulate? What is the...
How does one articulate?
How does, yes. I don't know. Jack?
So, I'll throw some 2 cents on this. I think it's a patchwork quilt that you thread new kind of like material into as you go. So no one comes out the womb speaking like a world-class speaker, but you pick up skills and little tips and tricks as you go, but there is no substitute for practice. So the way you get better is just doing the thing, do more of the thing, and just try to add little bits and pieces. Like there's so much you can do, body language, the way that you gesticulate, all that sort of stuff. The key is just practice and try and like follow channels that help you be a better speaker, charisma channels, stuff like that. But you should be creating content to learn that stuff or doing like speaking engagements and stuff like that.
Yeah, no substitute for practice. When I was younger, I used to do what's called Toastmasters. Now, that's a big thing in the West. I don't know if that's a big thing elsewhere, but I know for sure that, it's in Canada and America. And what it is a group of people that get together that are trying to improve their public speaking skills. And so basically once a week you meet up, they give you a topic, and then you're just forced to talk about a subject, usually one that you do not have a bunch of expertise in, one that you cannot like prepare for. And so it sort of tests your speaking skills more than it tests your ability to prepare. And that was great. I did that a little bit, not a ton, but I remember that was like, my heart was pounding, I could hear it rushing through my ears when I was waiting for my point to speak. And that was tangentially helpful. So I would do stuff like that.
Yeah, because I started off acting. I did a lot of acting through college and stuff. But I remember when I was in my graduate scheme, we had an actor come in, and it was supposed to be about presence and public speaking and high-level presentations. And I'm in this room with all these other grads. I must have been 23, 24. And the exercise he did is he had you walk up to the front, and you had to maintain eye contact and look at everybody. And there's like 20 people in the room without saying a single thing. So you were on stage and you have to walk around looking at everybody. And actually, a lot of people like crumbled under that pressure, which was really interesting. But it was a really good exercise, being comfortable in the silence, taking a second, taking a pause. There's a really good book I recommend if you want to read this stuff. And it was like how to speak so your audience will listen. And one of the big little stories from that I'll throw in that is he was at his kid's like speech, and the headmaster wasn't there. So the head of geography was there. And he gave a speech. He wouldn't have said, I'm the head of geography. And he probably didn't open it like that. But he said, I'm geography and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to do X, Y, Z. And he spoke to the actor afterwards, who's like an expert. He said, like, what did you think of the speech? And he said, it was great, but you seemed more like the head of geography than a headmaster. And he's like, what do you mean? He said, the second you got on stage, it was like, hey there, guys. He said, like, get up and just wait for 2 seconds. Drink the room in. Say nothing. And then begin speaking. That's someone who has presence and commands the room and attention. So there's little tidbits like that you get from reading these kind of books. So you can go deep and down the rabbit hole, but I'd highly recommend that you read that kind of thing.
Yeah, just give it a go, and then obviously practice in between. Punctuate it with some sort of self-improvement. You'll be good.
Yeah, dude, we got some cool ones here. If you guys became OpenAI CEO for one day, what changes would you make to the company?
Wow. If I became OpenAI CEO for one day.
Yeah.
I would probably... Wow. What is OpenAI's biggest problem right now? I would probably cozy up to the fella on Jack Roberts' shirt right now.
Yeah.
And I would GPU, TPU max. Because right now that's the hard constraint with these models. It's not necessarily the, kind of software paradigms or whatever. It's the speed at which they can like train new models and implement them, I would say. Like I think hardware is just still the major constraint, and that's why there's current policy games between the West and then the Far East, like China, surrounding compute access and chips and so on and so forth. So that would probably make the most sense to me. Hence like Stargate and all of these other things. Maybe Sam Altman's already doing that. I think that I would not be building a consumer product that would go into my ear. I don't think I would be partnering with Apple designer Johnny Ives. I don't think I would be rolling out ChatGPT for health. I don't think I'd be pushing out Sora. I think I would be playing like the big long game, and that would be the sole singular focus of my company, similar to what Anthropic is doing right now.
I like that. And then the next day I come into office, I wouldn't undo everything Nick did. I'd reinforce it. I would say, do more of that. What I would do is, first of all, I think a day is not enough time to get your grasp on the problems. But I think every model, every like group is trying to build their mode. I think I would try and make a cultural play. I would go for a Nike long-term branding play. And I would say, how can we get OpenAI into the cultural zeitgeist? How can what voices can we buy, like Scarlett Johansson, Morgan Freeman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, lock them down for 20 years and try and make a cultural play, like sponsor the Michael Jordans of 2026, sponsor the best. I try to get a cultural relevance to the company and build a bit of a kind of cool media machine and funnel behind it and just throw shit to the money down it. Make them OpenAI sponsored athletes.
Just go full Cluey on their asses. That's pretty cool.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, hey, if I was talking to Scarlett Johansson and it was her mode, I'd probably use it more, right? I think that scandal was one of the worst parts of the whole thing. The voice was sick, man. That was such a good opportunity for her to have her voice in everybody's ear for literally the end of fucking humanity, And she's like, no, don't do it. Pay me.
She fumbled. She fumbled the bag. That was an opportunity. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So then we've got time for a couple of questions. I do want to get them because I appreciate you guys have been live here. You don't think summarizing makes you understand the subject? Yes, agree. Not necessarily. You're right, Drew. Try to find a question. Is wealth even the goal in the future? It depends the way that you think about it. I guess there's many types of wealth, right? Information, financial, health, relational. So it depends on what you're prioritizing at the time. But people are going to want to improve their situation, or whatever the chessboard looks like.
Yeah. I think some fundamental aspect of humanity is we just want progress. So there will be progress towards some form of wealth, whatever it is, whether AIs control the future or not.
100%. And I think, guys, correct if I'm wrong, but I believe that is all of the
we got a good question from Mr. Sipes. He says he has a 9 to 5 and a family. He wakes up every day at 5, drives to work, working on his business at 6 to 8, works 9 to 5, family from 6 to 8 to 9, and then 9 to midnight works on his business. He's curious how he should optimize this to grow his business and whether it's about more consistent work. Basically, the man's in the constraint zone where he has, a family which constrains his ability to work on his business. His 9 to 5, which constrains his ability to work on his business and so on. And I think he's just, looking for some support here.
Awesome. My 2 cents to this would be you are in, first of all, just acknowledge that you are in grind mode right now. And this is a period of your life where you're busy and you're doing all the hard work, but at some point it will feel naturally easier when you're doing only one job. So I wouldn't quit your job until your side hustle, side project has replaced your current income for at least 3 months. That's the kind of bar that I set. That's the rule that I typically follow. I'd say one thing you can optimize is make sure you're getting training in your routine. I didn't hear anything about working out. That will drive your ROI up massively. So I think that's really important. Maybe that's something you could do with your family. But I would never compromise on that. I'm sure you might already be doing it, but just bear that in mind. And then since you have limited time, because you have a day job, that day job is a superpower because that keeps the lights on and you build your future in the evenings and the weekends. So think of that as a real blessing. I just be really deliberate on maximizing the return you get for every hour you spend on the thing. So just make sure that you're not following, like you're just not wasting your time on like hypes or fads, that you're really just being mindful about where you spend that time. So in other words, don't spend a week building a website, right? Like build a simple one landing page in like an hour or two. So just be really mindful and deliberate about where you're spending your time. Anything you'd add to that, Nick?
No, I think that's fair. It's the same situation as people with like a limited budget. You must be more intentional about how you spend your money. And so because you have a limited time budget, you must be very intentional about how you spend it. The only activities that I would recommend you do are activities that deliberately and directly move your business forward. At the beginning, the only activity that matters for a business that has 0 customers or clients is some form of sales and marketing. So I would not be spending a moment on anything that is not directly sales or marketing related. The short hour and a half or 2 hours a day that you have, I would spend entirely on sales and marketing, and I would worry about everything else. After you actually have some opportunities, because until then you don't really have a business, right? That's how I constructed Maker School. That's how I constructed more or less all of my content. It's just about like, hey, get out there and do the freaking thing. So yeah, treat it as a blessing, man. You got like what sounds like a lovely family. You also have what sounds like a great, source superpower, like Jack said. You can spend money on marketing things that save you time and then make you more money. That's something that not a lot of people have.
100%. And we're rooting for you, man. So we're part of the journey with you. We wish you the very best, dude, and we're on your team. So that's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Everybody join in live. Thank you so much for dialing. Nick, we'll take a few minutes and then we'll get some. I hear some grunts. I've been searching for this dude, so we need to take him out. And the Master Chief. So
we need to headshot some sentient beings. Yeah,
we've got to take him out. Awesome, guys. Have a beautiful and blessed Wednesday, and we'll catch you if you join us for live later on. That's cool. And Nick, I'll catch you in a couple then, brother.
Sounds good. Thank you guys to all who commented. Really looking forward to seeing y'all next week.
No, we appreciate y'all. All right. Boom.